Again, my name is Dane Gonzalez. I've been hosting Locked On Mariners for the last 2 years and change. I've been covering the Mariners um, in more of an amateur sense for the last 5-ish years. I started over at Soto Mojo, which is the fan-sided Mariners blog. I ended up starting up a independent podcast and website with my co-host Colby Patnode called True to the Trident and Control the Zone. We still do Control the Zone. We still do that on Patreon along with Locked On. I'm a Mariners fan, lifelong Mariners fan. Born and raised in Washington State, but I live in Toronto now, which I know is weird for a lot of people and brings up a lot of questions from folks. But yes, I am a Mariners fan. Grew up a Mariners fan. Love the Mariners. I don't have any ties to any other team. I'm Seahawks, Sonics. Like, I haven't watched the NBA in like 13 years because because of the Sonics, or 15 years. Jeez, it's been a long time. So yeah, Seattle sports all day, every day. That's what I'm about. That's what I live and breathe. And yeah.
Well, yeah, we love Seattle sports over here. All right, let's kind of get into the Locked On Mariners, kind of what goes on there. Kind of give them a little like maybe like a little outside like what does it look like?
Mm. Um, in terms of what
What are-
specifically?
what what are you guys trying to get across? Like what is your point? Like what is
Mm.
the
Yeah, so Locked On, a lot of the direction that they usually give to shows is like you need to have these big proclamations and have big hot takes, because that's ultimately what sells, right? Like, we know what the big sports commentary shows are and what the styles of those shows are and what ultimately sells and does the most views and viewership and all that. That's not really us. That's just, it's not my personality personally. Like, I'm pretty chill. Like, I'm pretty even kill. Like, I don't have these big takeaways. Sometimes I get upset, sometimes I get angry like every other sports fan, but for the most part I'm not a, like, especially with baseball. Baseball is a 162 game season. Some games there isn't a big takeaway from that. It's just like, here's what happened in the game and that's it. So really our goal is just to give honest, unbiased opinions on what's happening with the team. We're just absolute nerds too. We love stats and we love diving into stats. We love the roster building aspect of things. We love baseball theory and stuff like that, like the stuff that Jerry DePoto talks about. That's why we like Jerry ultimately, because Jerry is very open about stuff like that. So it's easy to kind of pick up on what he's thinking and what's going on in his head and in the heads of the Mariners front office, at least in past years. And so that's just kind of helped us, branch out even more into what we like to do, again, which is like diving into the nerdy stuff, right? The free agent signings and trades and stuff like that's what we ultimately love to do. And yeah, we don't beat around the bush about it. Colby's very different in his way that he likes to go about it. For anyone that's watched the show, that's very obvious. Like, he's very different in the way that he wants to go about it than I am. He's more of the big proclamation guy, and I'm just kind of the like, I'm very context based. I'm very context oriented. Like, I try to look at everything from every angle, and I try not to get too extreme on one side or the other. Sometimes, I don't do that. But for the most part, I try to, stay pretty much in the middle on things, and I think that's, especially for our particular dynamic, I think that works the best. And I don't think that necessarily would carry over to, like, I think I would probably come out of my shell a little bit more if I, like, did a show on my own, right? Like, just to, like, give it some variety. But for, like, our particular dynamic and how our show particularly works, like, I just try to stay as much in the middle as possible.
Most definitely. I like you kind of touched on it a little bit, but you guys always talk on like minor league. Like you guys always know
Yeah,
about like the minor league players and like who's coming up in like single A, who's down in Arizona. That's one of the things. I know you guys do your research and everything. We're gonna kind of get into it because I want to talk WRC plus and all that good stuff later
sure.
on in the
Yeah,
show.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, you kind of mentioned it as well. I want to know, as a Mariners fan, I get upset every day they lose.
Mm,
How do you stay even keel when they lose, or when they're winning 8 games and when they're losing six in a row? Like,
right, right. I mean, it depends on the day. It depends on the mood that I'm in. To be honest with you, especially for for us, like the lockdown model is producing at least 5 shows a week. Once every day, Monday through Friday. So like, it's hard to be consistent in my mood every single day when you just gotta pump out content. And I mean, there's just some days where like in this, I don't think this should surprise anyone, but like some days I don't want to do the show, like especially if they lose, like it sucks. But I gotta. But sometimes again, as a fan, and that's kind of part of the model too, is like they want you to be a fan, they want you to be passionate about that, they want you to show your emotions tied to the team. And sometimes I'll be a little more upset, I'll be a little grumpy, I'll be a little more critical of a player or a play that happened. But for the most part, I try to let Colby do the most of that. I try to let Colby do that, and just for me, I just try to guide the show, and I try to guide Colby along that journey over the course of those 30 or so minutes. But yeah, man, it's hard. It's hard, like, I mean, think about your feelings after think about the Angels or the Nationals game where they had multiple opportunities to win with the bases loaded and
yes.
nobody out, and then you got to do a show right after that. Like, think about like what how you would feel going up and doing that. So, it's hard. I try my best because obviously I don't want to rub anyone the wrong way at the end of the day, and obviously and we've done this a couple times and I've felt terrible about it right after, where it's like the emotions overshadow the analysis, right? And I don't want to do that. I don't like doing that, but sometimes that does happen. And it's something that, I'm still learning, right? I'm still trying to get better with that. Like, I didn't go to school for this. I'm not a professional, like, I wouldn't consider myself a professional by any stretch of the imagination. I just like to talk ball. I'm just an idiot with a microphone at the end of the day, like, that loves baseball and loves, my favorite baseball team and talks about my favorite baseball team. So, yeah. So I would say like it's hard, but I'm trying.
Yeah, that is always something that I have. I always like to go to the comments after losses, or I'll go to Reddit or something, and I'll go read through like the comments of what everybody's saying, and
Yeah.
it's hard. It's hard. I know it's hard being a Mariners fan. It's
Yeah.
just hard being a Mariners fan.
Yeah.
Okay, how do you guys create content when let's say like the Mariners are having a bad season or something like that? You know
Mm.
that they're not going to make the playoffs. What is your guys' mindset making content?
Yeah. So Colby and I started, I mean, the reason that we really like jived with one another is because we both liked the rebuild and what they were doing over the course of the rebuild. And that's just kind of like where we found common ground with one another. So we started making content together at a very weird point in the Mariners, like in the Jerry Dipoto era in Seattle, where they were building towards something, but they weren't good. Like 2019, like the Edwin
Yeah.
Encarnacion, Jay Bruce year, Tim Beckham, all that. But the way that we did that year was just like we were talking about like who's going to get called up, when are these guys going to get called up, what is this going to look like in 2020 and 2021. And also there for like a little bit, the 2019 team was actually kind of fun. Like the way they started the year, I think they were like 13-2 to start the year and all that. So
Hmm.
so like you still talk about the games, and if there's like interesting players that could be a part of the thing long term that are popping, we talk about that. We focus mostly on that. Like when the team is bad, when ultimately the results and the on the scoreboard don't matter that much, especially if that's what the expectations are. Um, it's easier to just kind of focus on individual players, and just try to attack it from that point of view over the course of the season. And then in like this period of time when they got eliminated a lot quicker than we thought. We thought they were going to go to the playoffs this year, especially after the month of August that they had. When essentially our off season started on October 2nd, we it's a struggle sometimes, right? Because we're doing shows 5 times a week, if not more. So and we don't go to 3 shows a week until after the winter meetings. We go to 3 shows a week for about 2 months, from the winter meetings to about mid-February. So like that's a lot of content that we have to come up with without like anything going on the field or anything going on like on the trade market or anything like that. So we'll start a little bit of an off-season preview. We'll look back on the year that just happened, and we'll this year we went like position by position and gave out grades to guys. We handed out season awards and stuff like that. It's content at the end of the day, right? And so we're trying, while I say that, like, we are trying to provide people with a quality, entertaining show. But yeah, it's hard sometimes. Like, you do run out of ideas. Fortunately, we have a great listener base now, to the point where we can rely on our listeners to come through with some really cool, questions and stuff. Like, we'll do mailbag episodes, and they'll and that gives us at least one show a week. So that really helps as well. And then we do some other fun shows here and there. But yeah, just, it's just the grind until hopefully Jerry and Justin do something and add, someone cool. And then we can just like talk about that. Like last year when they traded for Teoscar, like we had several shows worth of just like Teoscar content. And like, what do you do after Teoscar? And how does this all work? And blah, 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 blah. So just kind of waiting and hoping for something to happen soon.
I Monday shows are usually like one of my favorite shows. I love to hear like your guys's. I love to hear what other people have to say, and then you guys answer their questions to like, and where you guys see, because
Yeah.
you guys got like that. I just love the way you guys go about it. All right. I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about Root Sports and kind of like the new television deal and everything. What are your thoughts on like the Root Sports model right now, and where do you see it going?
I don't really have many thoughts on this. I'll be honest with you. That's not really something that I think a ton about. I don't think that, like, the thing with them, right, is like the Mariners own most of it, where it's not like some of the other Root Sports outlets where Warner Brothers is super involved. Warner Brothers Discovery is super involved. Like, I don't think it's ever going to get to a point where the Mariners are going to have to do what some other sports teams have done, where they're just going to have to go, local TV or do their own like independent thing, because like they own Root Sports, so they're technically already doing that. Just with the Root Sports branding essentially. But the thing that I really dislike, and this is something that I'm very aware of because it impacts Colby, and Colby has talked about this a lot, is Kraken and how poorly of a job they've done in promoting the Kraken to like the eastern side of the state. I think like Colby has to, I don't know exactly, because again, I don't live in the state, so I don't know exactly like how it works, but from what I understand, Colby has to buy like Fubo or something in order to watch the Kraken. And it's like, they advertise the Kraken as a very accessible thing for people, and it really hasn't been that. And for Colby specifically, it kind of lost him. Like it lost him before the thing even got started, and now he just doesn't really have that much interest. And I'm sure that's the same for a lot of people, especially in that area where they were excited about getting into hockey potentially, but because you have to jump through all these hoops in order for you to actually watch the team on a daily basis, it's kind of it's hard to get interested in that. So yeah, I don't think it's great. I'm really interested to see, kind of what happens here in terms of like when the Sonics come back, because I think that's a matter of when, not if. Because obviously they have the Trailblazers as well, Root Sports Northwest. So I assume the Sonics are going to have to go elsewhere. But yeah, in terms of the root sports model, again, I don't have many thoughts on it. I don't, that's not really something that I focus on too much. But yeah, ultimately, they need to do a better job in getting the Kraken out there to the people in the state of Washington.
I
So
agree. I agree. I don't understand the new like what they're trying to do. I thought they wanted to make baseball more accessible and hockey and all these sports more accessible to the younger generation and
yeah,
things like that. But like I was saying, like I was talking to some friends. I don't know a 15-year-old, a 16, 17 that can go out and go buy a Root Sports package or
yeah,
that like they have no control over that. Like you're gonna watch what's there for you to watch.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
all right, let's
yeah.
kind of
Because I think they're only like on Root Sports Premium now, like the Kraken. Like, uh, again, I don't really know what that all looks like and what the pricing of those things are, but like
yeah, they're
it's bad.
gouging.
That's not a good way to promote your new professional sports team. So
Well,
yeah,
especially after coming off of where the Mariners were, what they were the most profitable team in the Major League Baseball.
yeah,
So like the eyes
yeah,
are there. The eyes are
yeah. And the thing that I always see from Root Sports too, like when I see their tweets about certain things, is like they always try to put the onus on the TV providers, like, oh, it's Dish Network just randomly pulled the plug on us, or whatever the Xfinity or whatever. Like, come on, like I'm sure you have some impact on that a little bit, like, yeah. So whatever.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, I want to kind of transition into the team in this past season and stuff like that.
Mm,
Kind of just give us your thoughts on this past season and kind of like the strikeouts and everything. Like I don't know what happened this season. Like all of a sudden they just stopped controlling the zone. Like what do you think
yeah.
happened?
I think they had far too many similar offensive profiles in their lineup. And especially back to back to back to back in their lineup. Again, talking about like bases loaded, nobody out against the Angels, against the Nationals. Like, all you needed to do was lift the ball in the air, and maybe you go to the playoffs because of that. And that's because you just have several high strikeout tendency profiles in your lineup. Like, even Julio. Like, Julio's obviously a great player, but Julio strikes out a fair amount. And then you got Gino, and then you got Teo, and sometimes those guys are hitting, 2-3-4, 2-3-4-5. Cal is another guy that strikes out a fair amount. So you need this year, and I think this is something that Jerry DiPoto's already alluded to this offseason. You need to diversify your skill sets in your lineup, and you need to break up those strikeout heavy hitters in that lineup. Like, you can strike out. Like, the common misconception going on right now in the Mariners fandom is like you have to cut out all the strikeouts entirely. No, it's not true. You can strike out, and you can even strike out at a 28 to 31% clip, which is really bad. But you can strike out at that clip as long as you're producing. But the problem is, like, for guys like Gino, he's not producing the type of power output that you need out of third base. And again, like, you can have some of those guys, but you can't have a lineup full of those guys. And you especially can't have your biggest bats, aside from JP, be those guys. So yeah, they need more contact oriented hitters. At least one, preferably two. They need to add two of those guys this offseason. But yeah, it's really I think it's a quantity issue when looking back on 2023.
Hmm, I like that. Okay, it's an interesting answer. Okay. Um, let's talk a little bit on a little Shohei Ohtani. Do you see him a
Mm.
Mariner next year? Or let's see, let's even bring Juan Soto into this. I was told from somebody that is inside the Mariners that they're making a big move this summer, or they wouldn't tell me who, but they said that there's going to be a big splash coming this summer. What are your thoughts on that? Who do you maybe see that could be coming? Like,
I mean, I would love for it to be Shohei Ohtani, obviously. But the thing that we've seen over the last, I mean, like, every indication here is that, like, Jerry DiPoto and Justin Hollander are restricted financially to some degree. right? I don't know to what degree. There's a lot of people out there that think that they know, but they don't at the end of the day, and I don't either. I really don't know to exactly what degree that is. I just, I had my doubts, and I think rightfully so, along with a lot of people, rightfully so, that John Stanton's going to be willing to write that check for Ohtani, because, and the thing too, really with Ohtani is, I don't think it's really about money for him. I think he knows where he wants to go already. I think he does want to meet with teams and talk to teams and all that before he makes a final decision. But I think he has like a general idea of where he wants to go already. Cause look, he knows he's going to get broken off no matter what. He knows he's going to get $50 million a year or whatever it's going to be. It's going to be some insane contract. I think the only thing that maybe where money actually plays a factor into his decision is if someone actually makes a financial commitment to him in terms of the pitching front, right? Because you're essentially paying for two players, right? You're paying for Ohtani the hitter, and then you're paying for Ohtani the pitcher. And so that's why we're going to see just an extraordinary contract because of that. Ohtani the hitter is probably like a $35 million a year player. But when you add the pitching side on top of that, that's probably an extra $25 to $30 million. But because he's got this elbow thing, and generally speaking, teams are not going to be super convinced that he's going to be able to do both for the entirety of the contract. There's probably going to be a lot of incentives in the contract based on innings pitched, things like that, or pitches thrown. So if a team though says like, here, we'll actually guarantee you money as a pitcher for the first 3 years of the contract, or like, because he's not going to pitch this year. So like starting in 2025 and then through 2027, we'll guarantee you money as a pitcher. Maybe that'll change his mind. Maybe that'll actually have an impact on his decision. But even then, I don't know. I think ultimately, like he knows where he wants to go. And if I had to guess, it's probably the Dodgers. Probably the Dodgers, or it's the Giants, or it's the Rangers. And part of me is also like, I'm a Mariners fan. I don't want to hope. Like I don't want to get in the cart before the horse here and like set myself up for disappointment. Like I don't want to hope for Ohtani and then actually be upset when it doesn't happen, because like I think like odds are he's probably not coming here. But I also don't think that it's like a 0% chance, and I think anyone acting like it's a 0% chance is kind of silly. I don't think it's a high percentage chance, but I think it's a non-zero chance. Like there are reasons for him to want to come to Seattle. I mean, he almost came to Seattle back in 2018 or 2017. And they obviously have a really good foundation to build from. They have one of the best young cores in all of baseball. They have arguably the best pitching staff in all of baseball. They have some really nice stuff here to sell to Ohtani, and a city that would absolutely love him, and a ballpark that tailors well to his hitting style, and an organization that, again, because of its pitching depth, should be willing to be patient with him on the pitching front as well. They can give him a lot, and he also spends the off seasons, a little bit of the off seasons in Seattle, so he can go to Driveline and work out there. So like there are positives for Seattle when it comes to Ohtani. I'll believe it when I see it. You asked about Soto too?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think it's just going to get too expensive for the Mariners' taste, because look, you're buying 1 year of Juan Soto. That's it.
There's no hope of an extension.
Nah. I don't think that's gonna happen. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen.
Well, yeah, so might as well not give up anything.
Yeah, I mean, like 1 year Juan Soto would be great, and like if you look at the end of the day, I just want to win a World Series. So like if that gives you the best opportunity to win a World Series out of the next 10 years, cool. But there's definitely it's definitely cost dependent, and I just, again, you can't factor in an extension with him at all. So maybe he resigns, but like that's after the season, and that doesn't have an impact at all on the value that you give the Padres. Like the hope of an extension, like sign-in trades aren't a thing in baseball, so that It's not like the NFL where you're going to add additional compensation because you're going to extend the player or whatever. So you can't think like that if you're the Mariners. So you are, what is worth 1 year of Juan Soto to you? And to me, while Soto is arguably the best pure hitter in baseball, there's a cap to that, because that I mean, he's just a bat at the end of the day. Like, he's not a good defender. As good as the bat is, like, for 1 year of that, do I really want to trade 6 years of Bryce Miller plus for him? So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on that.
I heard maybe like a Henry Ford in that deal or something like that. And I'm a I have a friend that is a photographer down for the Aqua Sox. And so I get to watch him every night. I see what he does that dude is a stud. And I really enjoy him. And I hope that the Mariners do not trade him, because he's going to can play multiple. He might not even be a catcher. He might go play first. He could go play whatever position he wanted.
Yeah, he'll probably play, like second, center field, third. Like, he's got the arm for it. He's super athletic. Yeah.
All right, sorry, I'm getting off track here now. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good, man.
It's all good, man. Okay, so I got another two-part question for you here. Okay,
sure.
So I always hear, I think his name is Yamamoto. Is that how you say his last name?
Yamamoto.
Yamamoto.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So every year there's always, I feel like, or every couple years there's always that one big name Japanese player that comes out, and Mariners are always linked to them. How much do you think that Ichiro connection and all of like the money and all of that stuff that's over like in Seattle, how much do you think that affects if players come there? Does it have any effect at all?
I don't think so. I think that gets really, really overblown. Like, I heard John Morosi talking about it when he was talking about Yamamoto the other day, like, in the Mariners, like, oh, well, Ichiro's there and all that. And I mean, like, look, I know, like, that, like, the generation of ball players that have come out of Japan or are still coming out of Japan grew up rooting for Ichiro and watching Ichiro, specifically Ichiro on the Mariners, because these guys are, my age, right? So I grew up watching Ichiro on the Mariners, so I get it. But we just haven't really seen that play out. I mean, like, they signed Kikuchi, which was 4 years ago,
something like that.
And that's and that's kind of been it, really. I mean, they signed Iwakuma a while back. Like, they haven't signed a ton of these dudes. They really haven't. So yeah, I don't think that it has much of an impact, and especially in the Yamamoto discussion, like, it seems like he wants to go to the East Coast. It seems like he's probably going to be a Met or a Red Sox or a Yankee or something like that. Obviously, like last year, right? A lot of people talked about wanting Masataka Yoshida, who wound up going to the Red Sox. And, the same discussion happened again. Ichiro played for the Mariners, so obviously, like, he would want to play for the Mariners. No, he wanted to play for the Red Sox. He had no interest in talking to anyone other than the Red Sox. He wanted to go be a Red Sox. Kodai Senga really wanted to be a Met. That's just what it is. So, I think it just really depends on the situation. Are there some players that come over and they actually want to be Mariners, and partly because of Ichiro? Sure, I'm sure that's a thing. But I think that's a wildly, wildly overblown narrative. So yeah, I don't like, if they get Yamamoto, cool. I don't know if Ichiro's presence has a massive impact on that, because I mean, look, at the end of the day, he needs to get paid, right?
Exactly,
so yeah. Like, it's cool that Ichiro's there, but like, hey, where's my $200 million?
If the money's not right, I need to go somewhere where it is. Like,
yeah.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit of Jerry Dipoto and kind of like his comments that he made at the end of the season, and kind of JP's comments and Mike Zunino's comments. What did you think about that? Do you think there's a rift? Do you think it's just something where they're just frustrated because it's the end of the season and they expected to do more? What did you, what say you?
Yeah, so Jerry Dipoto's comments specifically, I'll talk about that first. The end of season comments, the end of season presser was a nightmare. Like, it was a complete utter disaster. I talked about it earlier that I really appreciate how open Jerry has been, especially when he starts talking about like baseball theory and all this stuff, like roster building and all that stuff that goes into that, and all that stuff that he has to think about as part of his job, right? And building a sustainable winner. Like at the end of the day, the sentiment that he wants to build a sustainable winner is more than fine. That's great. Like like in itself, we should want that out of our GM. We should want our GM to not just blow everything on 1 year, and if it doesn't work out, oh well. Like, I want to be good for a long time. I want to be good consistently, and I want to win a lot of ball games over a 10+ year period. And like, he didn't necessarily say like, oh, we only want to win 54%. It's just, you want to shoot for that mark, and then there's variance that, like, sometimes you'll win 58, sometimes you'll win 50. That's just baseball. Like, he's just ultimate. Like, that's the 54% is like a solid median for like accounting for variance like that. That's essentially what he's saying. He didn't word it properly, but that's essentially what he's saying. And the way that he also worded it in terms of like saying things in like absolutes makes his statement flawed, because he's saying like teams that win 54% of the time always make the playoffs over the last decade. That's not true. Over the last decade, Cardinals have won 54% of their games over the last decade. They've missed the playoffs a couple times. The Yankees have won 54% of their games over the last decade. They've missed the playoffs a couple times. And then if we're just talking about a single year, the Mariners just won 54% of their games and didn't make the playoffs. So like the sentiment that he's trying to convey is correct. The way that he worded it, very poor. And then obviously we're asking fans to be patient. We're doing them a favor, and
I didn't like none of that.
Super tone deaf.
Condescending.
The other thing too, though, is like, Jerry shouldn't have been the one up there taking all the questions. Agreed. At the end of the day, should be John Stanton. John Stanton's the owner. He's the face of the franchise ultimately, and he was there. He was behind the cameras. He was there. Like Jake Garcia of King 5 Sports said, like, John Stanton was there watching all that happen. He should have been up at the podium. But Stanton only wants to talk. He only wants to be in front of the cameras when things are going well for him, when he can talk about himself and make himself look good. Like, at the Hall of Fame inductions for Ichiro and Felix, like, he wants to talk about him and what he's done for the organization, and his experiences, his personal experiences with Felix and Ichiro and all that stuff. Because like, the one time that he stepped in front of the camera when things were not good for him was right after the Kevin Mather incident. When Kevin Mather said all that racist shit and all that, and
he said he wasn't going to talk about it or whatever.
Yeah. And Ryan Divish was hounding him, and he started acting like he was having technical issues on his computer. It went very, very poorly for him. It was a terrible look. And I think he's like scared from that. Like, he's just completely scarred from that. And so, he needs to answer some questions. We really, like, at the end of the day, like, Jerry can only do so much. The other common misconception in the Mariners fan base is like, Jerry has control over everything, and like, Jerry's not doing his job if he doesn't stand up to John Stanton. But there's only so much he can do, right? And there's only 30 of these jobs in Major League Baseball. So like, he can push as far as he can, but there's a certain line that he can't cross if he wants to keep his job at the end of the day. So like, I blame Jerry, and I don't at the same time. Like, Jerry, like, shouldn't be up there taking all the arrows for John Stanton, but when he's doing that, he also needs to be more aware of the things that he's saying. And even when he does talk about things that ultimately make sense to people like me that really get like nerdy about this stuff, he should know that, like, especially after the way the season ended, no one wants to hear that. People just want to hear, like, are you going to get better?
Exactly.
How are you going to get better? Do you want to get better? And how far are you willing to go to get better, to get yourself into a position to actually win a division and overcome the Rangers and the Astros. And obviously this is all compounded by the fact that not only have the Astros won a World Series recently, but now the Rangers have. And the Rangers have kind of leapfrogged you. The Rangers were behind you, and now they've leapfrogged you. So yeah, they look, at the end of the day, actions speak louder than words. If they go out and they kill this offseason, if they go out and they actually sign Shohei Ohtani, no one's going to care. No one's going to care at the end of the day about what Jerry Dipoto said in a press conference on a random whatever it was Tuesday or Wednesday in October. So
Why do you think they didn't record it or at least go live? Why wasn't it live for at least Facebook or
so
something?
yeah, so the excuse was Major League Baseball didn't want them doing that while playoff games were on, because I think it was during the Rays Rangers wild card game, if I'm not mistaken. So okay, fine, but I think they knew that this wasn't going to go particularly well. I mean, because like they see the reaction, like they're very aware. They're very aware of what's going on Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff. Like they know what the reaction is, and they know what the temperature of the fan base is. Ultimately, at the end of the day, they might act like they don't, but they do. So they probably knew, even if like Jerry said everything perfectly, that people would still have issue with it. So that's probably part of it. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe there is some legitimacy to the whole like Major League Baseball didn't want them streaming it during the playoff game. I don't know. I have no clue. But yeah, my theory is like they definitely didn't want as many eyes as possible on that.
Okay, I got a little game for you. I'm gonna give
All right.
you a name of a player,
All right.
and you give me one word.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start with Gino.
Um. Hmm.
And if
With
you have to,
know.
you can make it 2 or 3 words. It's fine. It's not a
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
not bound.
Ooh. Bounce back.
Okay.
Yeah.
You
I think he's gonna bounce back next year.
you see him
Yeah.
as a Mariner next year?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Mostly because like this is a bad free agent market for hitters. There aren't many third base options. I know like Toronto's checked in on him for trade, but it's like you got to make that worth the Mariners going through the headache of getting another third baseman, because I don't think they're gonna roll with Josh Rojas at third base if that happens. So yeah, I think it's partly circumstance, and I also think that they just believe in Gino. Plus, Gino's a really good defender. He's a great fit for the clubhouse in terms of personality. He's kind of like one of the he's one of the heart and soul guys on the team, and yeah, I think he'll bounce back offensively next year.
Okay,
Feel good about that.
Teoscar Hernandez.
Gone,
Gone. Okay, we're gonna write that down.
gone.
He's
He's out of here.
Yeah, I hope I was not impressed with him this year. I root for him and I hope all the best for him, but was not impressed with him this year. Brad Miller.
Brad Miller. Whoa.
Or not Brad Miller.
Bro,
Yeah.
oh, okay, Bryce Miller.
Bryce
Miller.
Miller. Yeah, I'm over here in the throwback machine.
I was like, Brad Miller. Man, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. All right, Bryce Miller. Two words. Really good. Really, really good. Yeah, like he's really good. Yeah. And probably a lot better than most people think. Like the fact that he was able to find a lot of success with really just a fastball, like makes me very excited for when he actually gets his secondaries going. Like he already flashed middle of the rotation stuff this year. So once he, I think another word though, for that, traded, maybe.
Oh, he's gone? You think he's gonna
Maybe. I mean, look, the free agent market for hitters is bad, and teams need pitching, and teams like affordable pitching, and there aren't many guys out there that have 6 years left of club control that have already shown like they have middle of the rotation potential, like Bryce Miller has. So that might be a way to get yourself a hitter or two.
What do you think? Okay, so you think you could get 2 hitters out of that?
Maybe it depends on the guys, but yeah,
Okay,
maybe.
okay. Okay, I was
Yeah.
wondering. I wasn't sure what his market value would be. I wouldn't be surprised though. Logan Gilbert.
Ooh. Uh. Good one. I mean, Walter comes to mind. that's the word. Yeah. Cy Young.
Ooh, okay.
I think
I like that.
he showed some cool stuff this year. Like the splitter was a real pitch for him, and
that was dope.
I think maybe next year, like he's gonna take that step. I think we might talk about him as a dark horse for Cy Young next year.
I keep hearing his name in trade talks. I hope the Mariners don't trade him. He's probably one of my favorite pitchers. That probably since Felix Hernandez. Like one of those just
Uh,
guys like you can just rely
yeah,
on.
yeah.
Okay, I got two more for you. Ty France.
Whew. Uh, big year. It's gonna be a big year for him because, or big winter, I would say. Um, he's got to get some stuff figured out, or it's going to be a wrap for him pretty soon here. Because like he already doesn't provide the power output that you necessarily need out of
First
first
base.
base. Now he's just kind of struggling in general to make contact, make quality contact, and then hitting into a lot of double plays. Like that needs to get cut out here, or they're probably going to have to move on. I think he's still part of the team next year, but yeah.
And then Austin Nola.
Austin Nola. Oh
That's who
shoot.
yeah, that was one of the names that I've been looking at recently.
Um.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot
Fu-
like that. That's kind of I know it's
no,
kind of
no,
like
no, no, no. It's cool. It's cool. It's cool. No, I like this. I like this. I would say fine. Like, you throw him into uh like the backup catcher competition with like Blake Hunt. If they bring back Tom Murphy, cool. Like, yeah, fine. I think the word there is fine.
So are they bringing back Murphy though? That was my question is if you get him as a backup, are you bringing back Murphy?
Yeah, I think there's a really solid chance of that. I mean, Jerry said that there's going to be, some outside interests, so we'll see. But they do want to bring him back. He is, and I don't think that the Blake Hunt trade precludes them of doing that in any sense. Yeah, I mean, he's a great clubhouse guy. He's one of the like sneakily one of the leaders in that clubhouse. They love him there in that clubhouse. And I mean, offensively speaking, he's been one of the best offensive catchers in baseball when he's been healthy for the last 3 years. So, yeah, I think they want him back. I think it does. I think it is cost dependent. Like, I for me, probably like 1 year, $5 million is probably like the furthest that I would go. If he's going to get like 1 year, 8 mil, something like that. I know that doesn't sound like a lot to the average listener here,
Yeah,
but
that's a
like
lot.
again, when we're talking, but I mean, like the difference between
Glenn,
like 8 and 5. Yeah,
and
yeah, like
Shohei
in
Ohtani
terms of like
numbers, yeah.
yeah, in terms of like baseball numbers. But again, like if we're trying to live in reality here and trying to acknowledge that Jerry and Justin are probably financially restricted to some degree, like that extra $3 million or so might have a pretty big impact on other things that they could do. Like it might preclude them from adding a reliever that they need or adding a
Mm.
bench piece that they need. I don't know. But yeah, I think they'll try pretty hard to get Murphy back.
Where do you guys go? Let's like I know you guys one stat that I like that you guys bring up a lot, or at least I know Colby does. Yeah, I know he always likes the
Yeah,
WRC plus and things like that. Where do you guys
WRC.
where do you guys go to get all these stats and stuff like that and to find all these plus minuses and to see all of that good stuff?
Yeah, Fangraphs.com is great for that. Um, Baseball Reference has a lot of good numbers. I prefer Fangraphs though. Fangraphs and Baseball Reference are very similar websites to one another. I prefer Fangraphs. I prefer their wins above replacement model more than Baseball Reference, stuff like that. Baseball Savant is MLB's own website where they have a lot of advanced stats and they have like the percentile rankings. Like when you hear us say like, oh, this guy ranks 96th percentile, which is really good, in sprint speed, right? That comes from Baseball Savant.
Mm.
So that's all like that's like their collaboration with Amazon, like the Amazon Web Services and all that stuff. So, or maybe it's Google Cloud. I can't remember, but yeah, it has all that like the crazy data, like stuff like catcher pop time and all this stuff, or catcher throw
That's
time and all that
wild.
stuff. Like, yeah.
Okay, one more question on the Mariners here. What were your thoughts when you seen Julio make that one catch over the wall and he acted like he didn't catch it?
Oh man. Uh, yeah, I was like, well, shoot, we're down like 2-0, or whatever it was. But yeah, man, when he showed the ball, I was like, dude, I mean, that's a superstar right there. That's just that's the personality, like being that's like the personality being bigger than the player, essentially, right? Like
Exactly.
that's just it's just it's that aura, man. That's just like you don't see that from many players. Like the little smile, like the little like sarcastic ass smirk that he has on his face. It's like yeah, man. That's just the stuff that makes you love Julio. That's the like he's having fun. He's like he doesn't care. Like it's a game at the end of the day, man. Like it's a game to him, and like I think he's a good reminder to a lot of us not to take this shit too seriously.
Most definitely. Julio and I are about in the same age bracket. So like I enjoy Julio and I don't know if it's just because we are about like the same age and stuff and things like that, but
Yeah,
like Julio is a dog and I enjoy
yeah,
him and I
yeah,
hope he's a Mariner
yeah,
forever. Okay,
yeah.
I want to kind of get into just a little bit about you. And kind
All
of
right.
just yeah. Can you just give me like a childhood memory of yours that brings you like that you maybe still think about to this day?
Hmm. Childhood memory. Good one. Um. You know what? I'll stay Mariners oriented with this. I think it was like '05. They went on a road trip. I think they were like in DC playing the Nationals at the time. And so they had play catch in the outfield at what was at the time called Safeco. And my parents took me there. We got to like play catch in the outfield at Safeco. Like I was in center field. I was making like diving grabs and all this stuff. It was fun. It was cool. It was really that was really cool. Yeah, all the times that I got to go to like Mariners games, I didn't get to go to many because like it was far from like where we lived. It was a couple hours. Like we'd have to take the ferry and all that stuff to Seattle.
Hmm.
So I went to like maybe 2 Mariners games a year, if that. So those games were always very very special to me. Um, so yeah, I would go with the catch in the outfield one though. That's a good question.
Okay, who is influential in your life, or who has
Ooh,
been?
my wife,
Okay.
my wife. She watches our shows and like she gives notes and
Oh,
like
okay.
I'll take a lot of those to heart and um yeah, I mean like my mom, my brothers, you know um one that's like kind of like external that like I've like never met this person, but um Kid Cudi's someone that I looked up to a lot, especially like as a teen. um Big like Man on the Moon 1, Man on the Moon 2 fan.
Yeah.
Like would listen to his interviews, and it's just like his ability to like, especially like over the years, received a lot of criticism, but he just keeps it pushing. And like even though that I don't really like a lot of his like newer stuff, like he like his ability to keep it pushing. And like I know like it affects, like the criticism does affect him. Like I mean he says that, he says as much on Twitter and stuff like that. But his ability at the end of the day to just keep it going, keep working, keep putting out content, stuff like that. Like especially for me now, and obviously on a much smaller level, but like I got people that hate on me all the time now. Like still, like I get that. Like people on Twitter and stuff like that. Like that. Like seeing him do that has helped me kind of handle that stuff as well. And not really like self doubt as much. So I'd say Cuddy for sure, and then like the immediate like family, like my mom, my wife, stuff like that. Yeah.
How does someone build strong relationships with people? Doesn't just have to be with like a spouse or somebody, but it could be.
Yeah, I mean communication at the end of the day, right? Like communication is so key. Like communicating your feelings, communicating when something ain't right. Like that's something that I've had to overcome a lot. Like um, for lack of a better term, I've been a people pleaser at times, and I've tried to like contort myself to make someone else happy or tell someone something that I think they want to hear. And that's not healthy, right? So, building a relationship is really like, again, and it doesn't have to be in an intimate sense, right? But like just communicating, being open to communicating, being vulnerable to, and just doing your, like, trying to do your part on the relationship. Like, sometimes, like, relationships are a two-way street, right? Like if the other person isn't reciprocating, then that's ultimately like their problem at the end of the day. But as long as you're doing what you can do, then I mean, again, that's really all you can do. So that's really the key for me, is just like communicating, and yeah, just being open and honest with people.
Okay, I like those. I always like to ask like those types of questions because people have
Yeah,
different answers. Always communication. Communication is always number one, I feel like. But like
yeah, yeah,
everybody's always got like little different ones.
yeah.
Okay. How do you connect with your people? Like since you don't really like since you're talking to somebody, how do you connect with people?
Mm. Um, like connect with like the audience, or
Yeah,
connect with like people.
with your
Okay, so
audience.
connect with the audience. You know, I try to make the podcast a personal conversation. I try my best to. Sometimes I don't do a good job of that, but I work on it. Um, I try not to use verbiage like you guys. I like to just say like you at home. Like I'm trying to like talk directly to you, like you and I, you watching at home. We're having a conversation, and it's a little bit harder for me to do that because also Colby is there. So Colby and I are having a conversation. But ideally, when we set out to do a show, from my perspective, I try to set it up as like it's me, it's Colby, and you, like at the bar or whatever, just talking ball. Right? That's what it is at the end of the day. And I'll do things like where like I'll rib Colby and I'll like look at the camera and I'll be like, "You see this guy?" and stuff like that. Like I'll try to do stuff like that. Like that just makes you feel like you're kind of part of the gang, for lack of a better term. Uh, so that's really like my key with that. I pick and choose the times that I want to engage like directly with like comments or tweets, mentions, stuff like that. Sometimes I'll interact with like the hate and whatnot, and just like if I feel the need to be like, you are wrong about this, like I'll I might engage on that. But like I always try to make time for people that send me a message, that sent me like especially like people that email us and send us like longer messages like thanking us for the show, or a thought that they have on the show or something like that. I always try to make sure to take the time to talk to those people and thank them and
Hmm.
all that. I think that's very, very important in terms, especially like because like we have almost 10K subscribers on YouTube, but in the grand scheme of things, that ain't anything. I don't have any delusions of being like someone, right? So like at the end of the day, I'm just a dude, and I appreciate someone taking the time out of their day to watch my show that I took time to put together and create. So yeah, just being humble. Like I think that's very important, to just like make sure to take the time to appreciate the people that appreciate what you're doing, and yeah. So
All right, so Ty is the congressman. Let's picture this, okay? He has a
all
chance
right.
to change any law he wants. What would it be?
Oh, man. Uh, any law. I mean, to get like serious for a second, like obviously gun laws like need to change. Of course. We need to get the folks out that like have been incarcerated for like marijuana related uh issues, stuff like that. Yeah. I know that maybe that's maybe you were looking for a more fun answer, but I'm a very like practical person when it comes to stuff like that. Like that's really like what I think about. That's what goes on in my head all day. Yeah, man. You know what? All right, for a fun answer, make Super Bowl like make the day after the Super Bowl holiday.
I agree.
I think we need to make that a holiday.
I
Yeah.
agree. How is it not?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I agree. Okay, I got a couple more for you real quick, and then we'll wrap this up. What is the best advice you got on your journey so far?
Ooh, best advice. It's a good question. I would say I've talked to a lot of people in this industry, and well, it's great to have your degree, and I'm not trying to discourage anyone from not getting their degree. But in this particular industry, there are a lot more people now that make these hiring decisions that are in power at these outlets, that what they really care about at the end of the day is that you can do the work, right? So if you're someone that has time, like me, like, all right, so when I came to Canada, so I moved to Canada in 2019 or 2018, and applied for permanent residence. And during the time of applying for permanent residence, which that process takes about a year, I couldn't work legally. So I just had a bunch of free time on my end for like a year. So I wanted to find something to do, and so I just started writing about the Mariners. Like I've always been good at writing. I've always had a good handle on English and all that. So I just used that and just started writing. And if you have free time on your hand, just if you can write, if you can, like, I think Substack is a great forum to use, like, just to put out written content, to put out podcasts, stuff like that, because you are building a portfolio. And if you can provide that portfolio to someone, if you can show that you can do the work, you already have a leg up on the competition. Like, there are definitely going to be some people still in these hiring positions that have that still like value the degree over everything. And again, like I think people should go and get their degrees and all that stuff if it makes sense for you. But I don't think it's the only path. And the reason I say that is because people that have hired me have said that. I mean, I don't have my degree in this field. Like I don't like, but because I've done the work and I've proven that I can do the work, that's what's ultimately gotten me in the door. And people don't want to mess around anymore, right? Because there's so many people that want to get into this stuff nowadays. Like, you just want reliability. You want to know that someone can be creative, that they can do it in a timely manner. And if you have proof of that, if you have the proof of concept, that's all you really need for a lot of folks now. So yeah, that's probably the best advice I've been given. Yeah.
Okay, last question real quick for you. What is your definition of success?
Definition of success. That's a good one. I heard you ask Jim Mueller about this, actually. I watched that interview. It was a good interview.
Thank you.
I think like her, I'm probably not going to go in a broader sense. I might go in a broader sense. We'll see. But for me, success is still something that I'm trying to find, right? First and foremost. So I want to say that. Second of all, success to me, though, like on just a daily basis, is like getting up, taking the day head on. Like I think that's a really big step for a lot of people. It's been a big step for me, right? Like, someone that's like dealt with like mental health issues and stuff, like being able to like have confidence in yourself to like take the day on. And especially for me, like getting on camera every day, talking to thousands of people, it can be tough at times. So for me, success is like doing that and being able to produce a quality show that people engage with, that has a positive impact on people, that'll because again, like if I'm able to provide someone like 30 minutes of escape and provide 30 minutes of entertainment, something that someone looks forward to, and I'm able to consistently give them that, I think that's, pretty successful on my part. And then just in more of a broader sense, I think, being a successful person, to me, it's not really like, oh, and I'm sure a lot of people attack this from like a financial standpoint and a status standpoint and all that. For me, it's more about, again, having a positive impact on those around you, being a positive presence on those around you. Because that's ultimately like, not to get too existential here, but like that's what you ultimately leave behind, is like the memories of you. And like I don't want to be like this negative presence. I don't want to be remembered as like this negative presence. And maybe that's because like I've been around people like that who like, and I've seen like how people talk about them now that they're gone, right? Like I don't want to be that. I don't want that to be me, right? So having a positive, being a positive presence in my wife's life, being a positive presence in my friend's life, like that's really like success to me. And just continuing to be willing to grow and to learn and to do that to the fullest of my abilities. I think that's success.
Okay, I like that. I always, I have a 45-minute drive to work. So when I'm going to work, I always try to toss you guys on in the mornings or whenever the situation, obviously yesterday's episode, but in the morning. But I like that. I
Yeah.
like that answer though. And I appreciate you. I think that's probably one of the most important, I think, questions that like I ask, just because I always feel like people think success is, as you say, it's like money, it's like the status, the symbols, all of that. But I feel like success is deeper than that, and everybody has a different definition of it. And I think that's what makes it so amazing. And I think that's what makes the
Yeah.
podcast so amazing, is we can all come together, and it's an actual like
Thank
it's
you.
a one-on-one conversation,
Thank you.
and
Yeah. Thank you.
you get people out of their, I'm not saying like maybe so much you, but like you get them out of their character, and they are who
Sure.
they are. Um, we have Ty Gonzalez from the Locked On Mariners podcast with us today. We thank him so much for coming on, and we just really appreciate you, Ty. Thank you so much.